Good morning. Glad you could join us on a Saturday morning. This presentation is to walk through and demonstrate the great work that the 8th grade ELA students at West Junior High in Oakland, Tennessee have done for the 2025-2026 school year. My name is Dr. Meador, and for the last 6 months, I've had a real pleasure getting to know and explore learning with 86 of these students. There were 89 initially enrolled, and by degree, we ended up working with 86. What you're about to see is not a usage report. This is the result of analyzing over 111,000 student learning interactions and translating those into a blueprint for how learning actually happens across boundaries. Not grade levels, not bell schedules, but how students truly move forward and toward mastery. At scale, this work represents 111,000 plus questions answered. Over 1,000 hours of learning, 477 academic skills progressed. But the key point is this. These are not usage numbers. They represent sustained engagement and precision targeted practice at a systems level. This slide breaks down this school year. It breaks down when the students practiced, how consistently they practiced, and in which categories they practiced. The important takeaway from this slide is that we achieved momentum over time, not just spikes of activity. As a result of doing this, what emerged is a true blended system. Instruction drives the work in school. Reinforcement happens independently at home. And learning no longer stops at the ringing of a bell. It became continuous. And that's where the scale happens. Make no mistake, and I'll reiterate this, learning became continuous. And that is where our scale happened. We saw a clear acceleration in patterns. Not random, but when rigor actually increased. By looking at this slide, it'll tell us something critical. When aligned to standards, when the students are aligned, the learning is aligned. When aligned to standards, the effort is not wasted. It becomes structurally productive. You can clearly see on this chart to the left, we had a February surge. We dipped in the month of March. We also had spring break. That was a 2-week break. And then we ramped back up in April. April was also the month of our state testing. This is also another critical point that demonstrates that learning did not fall off at the end of the year. It increased. This one is one of the most important shifts. Learning is not a step-by-step within grade level process. It wasn't in this case. In this case, the students actually moved. They would move down in grade level to fill the gaps, and they would move across and up grade levels to accelerate. And most growth actually happened across grade boundaries, not within them. The differentiation matrix. Why students crossed boundaries. Upon my arrival to the 8th grade ELA class, the first thing that I noticed was varying degrees of mastery in content areas, or in the content area, I should say. Because it was an inclusive class, the first thing that I did was wanted to make and provide, nurture, and cultivate a culture in the class of responsiveness. And after observation, if you had weak readers in the class or those that were weaker in a content area, the likelihood of finding any level of empowerment was slim. So with IXL, the system that we used, we simply took and said, we identify you, and this is based off of their scores, their test scores, previous data, historical data. And then we turned it and we said, let's start with the baseline. So if a student was reading, or they tested as far as comprehension at a 5th grade level, opened up the 5th grade curriculum. After a time of monitoring growth, monitoring what they were doing at the 5th grade level, we'd level up to the 6th grade and then to the 7th, ultimately to the 8th, got them on grade level. And then we would level up and stretch even more by pushing them into the 9th grade and into the 10th grade to demonstrate that they could show a significant level of reach into the next level. We called it leveling up and stretching. So this slide right here actually explains why students moved across levels. Some of them actually needed the foundation repair, as I talked about with students being included and being on a specific grade level and having to start them off at the lower level, or giving them an opportunity to work in that lower level and move up. Some simply needed to build their confidence. Call it what it is. And then some were ready for acceleration. Those that quickly went through the 8th grade level curriculum, the fast burners, and those who were actually mastering the content, opened up 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th grade, and 12th grade to see what they could possibly do. It also gives them the advantage by seeing what they can expect in these coming grades. We got very positive feedback from our student cohort on that. So the differentiation isn't a strategy. It was a natural outcome, or is a natural outcome, of real data. This slide, the architecture of cognitive fluency, explains why students move across levels. Some needed, again, foundational repair, confidence building, and the others were simply ready for acceleration. This is where things get interesting. What we noticed was that students were moving through three dominant stages. They practiced a skill, which was stage one, thus becoming proficient, thus achieving mastery. But the biggest drop off is not mastery. It's between the practice and proficiency. And that's your intervention point. That's your go-to. That's your friction. Notice here on the slide, I'll read it verbatim, 32% of skills practiced fail to reach baseline proficiency. 32%. You can see the numbers for yourselves from cohort average for a student that just simply practiced. 45 skills per student were practiced, of which 30 skills were were deemed proficient per student. That's a 68% retention rate. Lastly, you can look at the cohort average for mastery. 28 skills per student mastered. 62% overall retention. There it is. But again, the key thing to notice on this particular slide is not the skills mastered. It's the friction point. This challenges a major assumption. More work does not equal more learning. We had students who answered more questions, but mastered significantly fewer skills. That's inefficient effort, and how can we see it now? But that one particular anomaly, the individual or individuals that answered more questions and didn't master as many skills, there are some caveats in that. There are some caveats to that. This is an important slide. Questions per mastery, a new metric. Questions per mastery. We introduced this new metric. This tells us how efficiently a student learns. Low QPM is efficient learning. High QPM is friction. Thus, this actually becomes an early warning system before failure shows up. More information on this, see the end slide and reach out. Here's the risk, folks. Students can spend hours working and still not learn. Without monitoring efficiency, we mistake activity for progress. Through this particular cohort, if that's what, as I'd like to coin the term, we define 4 learner archetypes. First, We'll start off with the top right, the sprinters. These learners were fast and efficient. Then we have the grinders. They were persistent, along with heavy effort. Then we have strugglers that were identified in the metrics. High effort, yet low return. And then, of course, we have a fourth quadrant or archetype, and that's your disengaged. This was simply defined as low participation. By defining these archetypes up front and early, this allowed for more targeted, not generic support. Behavioral signatures based off these archetypes. Notice we start with the left, with the sprinters, move to the grinders, the disengaged, and of course the strugglers. Doing so actually gives us a triage system. We can now identify students who need intervention before they fail. And this is based on behavior patterns, not just scores. Students don't learn the same way. We know this. Some actually explore pretty broadly. Some focus narrowly to perfection, both of which can succeed. But each requires a different support strategy. Our highest performing students are outpacing the system. Traditional pacing holds them back. The integration of using an EdTech platform such as IXL demonstrated that this data, what you're seeing, proves that when constraints are removed, growth accelerates drastically. Our triage matrix. Now we move from insight to action. We're prioritizing interventions based on skill severity, skill complexity, and not all gaps are equal. And now we treat them the same way. This is what we do with the data. Intervene with strugglers, activate disengaged students. It's accelerate advanced learners and validate the high performers. That's precision instruction at scale. This is a real example. Identify students through data. We talked about that moments ago. Identifying lower level readers based off of previous benchmark scores, milestone scores, state diagnostics, testings, things of that nature. Isolate them for targeted support. And the intervention or intervene with focused laser intense instruction. One example would be following our curriculum through Amplify with this particular cohort. We read the book, the graphic novel by Gris Gormley, Frankenstein. It was a graphic novel. We read the entire book as a part of our curriculum. Matching the Amplify structure with IXL, blending those and matching those to our Tennessee state standards. We isolated every state standard and every skill that paired with Gris Gormley's Frankenstein. And we blended that instruction into daily usage, not just weekly usage of IXL, but daily usage of IXL. 15 minutes of class were devoted. 15 minutes of daily class time were absolutely devoted towards doing that and implementing that in our strategy. This is actually how data becomes instructional action. Because it was looking at those, we're looking at those data points, that data collection, the digital footprint that became part of my instructional action and not just reporting. With those students, we moved the needle. And in doing so, with a quantifiable growth jump. Using two examples, when instruction is targeted, growth accelerates. This isn't incremental. This is measurable, significant movement tied directly to strategy. This work proves three things. Scale is possible. Precision is measurable. And real-time intervention is achievable. We know, or we are no longer delivering instruction. We are engineering precise growth. I mentioned the total questions answered moments ago. Total questions mastered, TQ, the TQM, or excuse me, the QPM, questions per mastery. QPM is a learner efficiency metric. As mentioned earlier, low QPM, the student is learning efficiently. High QPM, the student is experiencing friction. So think of it like this. If a student needs 30 questions to master a skill, that's efficient. If they need 300, something is breaking down. And QPM helps us catch that early. For more information on the metric, you can use the following slide to contact me for more information there. More information about implementation. of ed tech in the classroom or training district personnel as far as usage and blending that usage with instructional capacity, instructional precision, and engineering your student growth, reach out. I'm at matt@learningaiinstitute.org. You can follow the name there. AI literacy and artificial intelligence are hot button items within our school districts right now, within our states, our departments of education, our LEOs. Are you ready for AI literacy? Learning AI Institute has evolved, designed, and is currently piloting AI literacy for students. Follow the link below, copy it, put it into your browser. Do a status check. See if you're ready. I'm Dr. Meador. I'm very proud of that 8th grade ELA class at West Junior High in Oakland, Tennessee for the 2025-2026 school year. Thank you.